Woo-wee! This album hits hard if you're in isolation. Hey there, welcome back to True North Reviews. My name is Ryan, and today we are discussing J.S. Ondara and his album Folk and Roll, Volume 1, Tales of Isolation. J.S. Ondara is a Kenyan singer-songwriter who I praised a lot last year, along with fellow critics. Tales of America was the debut album from Ondara, and it is one of my favorite singer-songwriter projects, period. So stop doing yourself a disservice and listen to it already. Now, I promise there won't be any threats on this channel, but if I could threaten you with one thing, if you haven't listened to that album, please do so. The angelic vocals, the warm instrumentation, and the songwriting, especially from the perspective of an immigrant, those are all the things that I love from J.S. Ondara. We are now talking about his latest release, however, From a Quarantine State. This is a quarantine album, as quarantine albums seem to be becoming a trend in recent times. It wasn't too long ago that we got the Charlie XCX record, and now it's like we're getting the singer-songwriter take on the slow life, being isolated, potentially losing your frickin' mind. Similar to Tales of America telling a story, Tales of Isolation is also telling a story, arguably relatable to the masses, especially for people who aren't considered first-wave immigrants. So yeah, Tales of Isolation follows an intimate storyline of someone losing their job in the market, whether you are working at a factory or in a restaurant, just tackling the economic and mental fallout and all the struggles that go along with that during a pandemic. As Ondara is connecting with his audience lyrically, he is also stripping back his instrumentation, sounding intimate with his arrangements as well. It really just sounds like it's him and his guitar and his harmonica. Unless you want to count the shower, which yes, that is used as a backdrop on one of the songs. Pretty interesting. So with all these makeshift production choices and raw, pretty basic recording techniques, taking away the backing instrumentation, removing even the professional side of production, as this album gets to be downright rough in some places, even with all those changes, all those limitations, that doesn't take away from the heart and soul of J.S. Ondara. This record opens with the song Pulled Out of the Market, which lyrically dives into the non-essential workers losing their jobs, as I previously touched on. And one thing I have to praise about the songwriting right out of the gate is just how personal everything sounds. Like, I couldn't tell if JS is writing this out of personal experience or if he is viewing it from another perspective. Either way, it is still a feat. Sonically, with the opening track, though, I just love the expressive and raw emotion from Ondara, from the strumming on the guitar down to the emotive first use of harmonica, which we have not heard in his past work, and it's pretty damn fine if you ask me what it sounds like. It might even remind me of some like early Bob Dylan, who was obviously a big influence for Ondara. When we head into the second cut, Mr. Landlord, we start to feel the financial struggle of the pandemic weighing down on Ondara's shoulders. Paying the landlord, always a fun thing to do. It might not be fun to do, but we have to do it anyways, and it's extremely difficult in these times, and I can't imagine like what it would be like for like a starving musician. Again, Ondara, I don't know what his circumstance is, but I feel him on this track if that is him personally going through this. Just the amount of empathy that I can get out of this track is unreal. Skipping ahead to track 4, we have another relatable narrative on From 6 Feet Away. This is an emotional ballad as frontline workers are dealing with keeping their distance from their own family, which is truly heartbreaking. Again, another genuine song, the quiver on Ondara's voice. If they're not even paying attention, listeners won't even be fazed by the humorous reference to watching Tiger King 3 times. So yeah, listen carefully and you'll actually find something funny in a sad song. Nice little Easter egg there. Now, speaking towards what might be my favorite track on Tales of Isolation, that would be Isolation Anonymous. There's just a dire and intense performance on here. He's really just beating the crap out of his acoustic guitar for a good reason too, because this is like easily the catchiest hook on the entire project. And lyrically, as the title of the track would somewhat suggest, we are diving into alcoholism, which yes, that is also relatable in times of quarantine. I would be lying if I said I haven't downed a few brewskis. If you're looking for another catchy song on this project, try Pyramid Justice. This is one of the simpler and straightforward songs, absolutely gorgeous, yet easy chords at the beginning of this song that frankly tear me up. They get to me. Lyrically, the song speaks towards people putting on these hats just to say that they're a feminist or a socialist only when the time is right, or as JS says, only when the suit fits. Again, putting on clothes, putting on a facade. Another hard strumming song on the guitar, in addition to Isolation Anonymous, is Isolation Boredom Syndrome, IBS. Ondara is cursing at his own mother on this track and also apologizes for it. It's like in his head, he is imagining himself as all these different occupations, whether it's a painter, a writer, a scientist. But suddenly he realizes that he doesn't really know as much as he thinks he does. And I just think this is a great self-awareness follow-up to the track Pyramid Justice. IBS is then followed up by IDS, which is Isolation Depression Syndrome, which honestly, this is where we head into the part of the album that has some of the weaker tracks, in my opinion at least, as I think IDS really just suffers from not having a full arrangement. It might have just benefited a bit more if we had some instruments to keep things interesting. Because yeah, this song didn't have to be 7 minutes long. Like, I feel it could have been half the time. Still, gotta love the harrowing and passionate performance from JS. He made do with what he had in the studio, and sometimes that was just him relying on his voice. Now, if you make it to the end of this record, you'll know that the final two tracks are what also rely on that voice, maybe not performance-wise, but lyrically, as this is the densest part of the Tales of Isolation narrative. These final two cuts are desperate. They are pressing, they are yearning for your sole focus and concentration. The final track in particular, Ballad of Nanodolene, takes the long-form approach to write like a Gordon Lightfoot Wreck of Edmund Fitzgerald kind of ballad, just like the 8+, 10+ verse, no end in sight kind of song. Whereas the good intent is there on Ballad of Nanodolene, along with the numerous details of an elderly woman losing her life to COVID. I just find that the final story on here is a little long-winded, and again, could have been made more compelling if there was a bit more variation to the instrumentation, the passages, deliveries, and what have you. Just a mixture of elements Ondara could have improved upon here. Overall, on Tales of Isolation, Ondara remains to be one of the most emotionally relatable singer-songwriters in the industry right now. Massive kudos to him for writing an album that is as detailed as it is intimate. Just when he could have easily pandered to the masses, I think Ondara, he connected with all of us on a human level. He seriously covered most, if not all, of the facets of quarantine life, and he details what most of us have been going through the past few months, from missing loved ones to speaking about even the greater societal impacts. Sure, a lot of these songs are bogged down by their context, they are very contextual, and most of these songs do wear their influence on their sleeves, but what JS lacks with that, he makes up for with charisma and genuine love. Not an entirely great project in my opinion. The more urgent tracks towards the end travel into traditional singer-songwriter territory, and they do lose their creative steam as the guitar kind of just loops over the same pattern over and over again. Things do get to be a little repetitive. Good album though. Good ideas do flow onto the page and are executed with some pretty decent results without being too cringy. All of this while being therapeutic for the artist who made it, I hope. And who knows, maybe we're getting a volume 2 soon. Only Ondara would know. For me though, I'm feeling a strong 7 out of 10 on this, maybe even a light 8 out of 10. Either way, still getting a recommendation from me. There you have it. There is the JS Ondara album review. Make sure you sound off down below in the comments. Let me know what you guys think of this music. Agree or disagree, I'm here to engage with you guys. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new in town. I'd appreciate that very much. As always, thanks for watching, and have a rockin' day.